So, Lorenzo, I should mention to you that, you know, one of the things that I'm really thinking about is I find it really interesting when I am talking to clients, prospective clients. One of the questions I always ask them is like, when did you last make an adjustment to your ad, your creative or your copy or your budget? And then when did you last make an adjustment to your description on the product page? And they always say, like, for the ad, they always know when it is. They'll say it's a few days ago. And for the product page, they always say, like, I don't remember. And to me, it's really interesting that I find it really interesting. It's almost like the analogy I like to use is like we're kind of like painting the door of our house all the time, but then we're not changing the layout of the house itself. Uh, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think the way I think about this is like with ads, because I used to run Facebook ads, 10 years ago. So I have done that. I was a practitioner doing it, so I have experience. And running ads, you get instant feedback from the ad platform, that being Facebook or Google, whatever, about how the ad is performing. You know, right or wrong metric doesn't really matter. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, okay, you launched the ad today, you're getting a feedback within like hours about how that one is performing. And there's more people that know how to use Google Ads and Facebook Ads rather than how to use Google Analytics, which is the feedback loop that people need to use in order to figure out if, or any other analytics platform, right? I'm just talking about the most popular one. But that's the only platform, that's the platform that people need in order to get a feedback loop started about how their product page is performing.
I think that's really it's interesting and something that I had not even considered from that perspective. You know, that's a really good thought. And the way I was thinking about this is slightly differently. I mean, I think what you're saying is 100% correct. Um, I kind of look at it like an insurance policy. So if you have a product page where you're driving $1 million worth of sales a year, just making this number up, I think I don't know what you'll have to kind of look back and look at the math and see how it works out. But I think investing 10 hours a month on studying and refining the description on that product page, it makes sense. Now, remember, now why am I saying working on the description? The reason is because product images are the result of a photo shoot. So you can't afford to do a photo shoot every month. It doesn't make sense. So it's kind of like something that you can maybe do once a year at best, right? So it's not a variable that I can play with all the time. Customer reviews, again, is kind of out of my control to some extent. I can get a lot of data about how people think, but I can't like make my reviews more valuable than what they are. So really what I'm left with is the product page structure and the description itself. So if I was driving $1 million in sales a year, I would spend at least 10 hours a month uh, rereading the description because, and and this goes back to this topic of editing. I have never in my entire life written an article where I have then spent 2 hours rereading it and not been able to come up with at least like five really meaningful improvements. Like editing is the ultimate cheat code in life. And as much
Mhm.
as our brain is designed to say that, this product description cannot be improved, I'm 100% confident that it can be improved. And I'm going to give a very simple mechanism for how they can go about doing it. So they've allocated 10 hours a month for just the product description. I would recommend that they put in their calendar, like, 2.5 hours every week, if that's the math they want to use. And what I would do is have a 2.5 hour block. And in the first 1 hour of that, I want you to just read the description top to bottom multiple times and digest it. Then I want you to, for the next 1.5 hours, rewrite it on a blank piece of paper without looking at it and just see what comes out. And I have a feeling by doing this exercise, you will have noticed certain things, maybe a simpler way of explaining something. Maybe you will have an idea for a visual that was not there previously. Maybe you will use a little bit of humor to engage the readers so they continue reading. Like there's so many ideas one can have and see what you come up with. Um, because this is not even about A/B testing. This is just simply about you refining your description. The one thing that I should mention about the description or in conversions in general is think of a visual of a chain. And in a chain, the weakest link breaks the chain. So if you have a description where everything is really beautiful, but in the third paragraph, you've said something that is very difficult to understand, you're actually breaking the reader's attention span. And
Mm.
you may not realize it, but that sentence is actually killing conversions. So by doing editing, you're able to really identify that problem and fix it. You might notice changing what one sentence is actually having a 10% improvement in sales because you've solved a very critical problem. So I just think it makes sense if you're driving $1 million to spend at least 10 hours a month uh, reworking and working on your description.
Yeah, I have three more points on this, Rishi. So
Go for it.
the first one is, I think, you know, I'm just trying to find the cause of why there's not time spent doing what you just said. One hypothesis that I have is like lack of talent of copywriters. I think that's huge, right? Like how many teams of e-commerce companies do have a copywriter, like full-time copywriter in-house? I rarely come across that. So that could be one reason. The second reason is lack of data that shows that the product page is not working.
Great point. Great point.
And the third one is imagine if it was possible to figure out. So you know how there's the concept of attribution for channels and marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and people are struggling with attribution between like Facebook ads and like there's a lot of like last click attribution, there some of them are very complicated. So imagine, right, if there was a way for the CEO to figure out the attribution at the product page level for each element on a product page, right? You would go in front of the CEO and say, look at this, right?
Yep.
The product description is the one that had the highest impact on conversion. And you're not spending even a second doing it. It's like, show me the data on that, right?
Great point. That's a really interesting. That's a really interesting perspective. That's
Because it's
yeah.
like maybe they're doing it because they don't know. They don't know, right?
And maybe they are trying, maybe the team is talking to the CEO and saying, we should spend more time on our descriptions. And the CEO is like, well, how do you know? And they're like, oh, we just feel, right? And so your point is that if you can collect some data around that, I think it's a really good point. And I think you can do it through, you can actually even do it through panel interviews. And you can kind of like recruit 10 people and say, okay, you're looking to buy a room air purifier. Um, Tell me how you'd go about it, and in the interview process you'll be able to kind of get the weightage of the description, because I think right now unfortunately it's just seen as an element on the page. I think it's a very interesting point. Yeah, I love it.
I'll give you another one. I'll give you another one that I just thought. Like some people, they're like, "Oh my God, Lorenzo, you're so creative. You're so creative." I'm not, right? Like my creativity is being fed by, honestly, voice of the customer. I read comments from people, through reviews or surveys that I have to like put up for clients, or interviews that I've done with customers of clients, and I reread that. So a lot of those ideas that I have, like a lot of that creativity comes from stealing a lot of language that is being used by the user. And I wonder if it's also because people think that they lack creativity. You were saying, oh, there's a lot of things that you can do on a product page. I already see a ton of people thinking, like, what? Give me an example of a bunch of things that I could be doing, right? Recently somebody was like, oh yeah, like social proof, just like push reviews and testimonials, right? But that's what everybody talks about, right? Like, so I guess what I'm trying to say here is um I think maybe people, they think they lack creativity, but they don't. Because I'm a person that does not have creativity. I just get creativity when I'm in contact with voice of the customer data.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to actually make this, I'm going to make this valuable for our listeners. I'm going to make an offer. The offer is, I want you to make one calendar invite in your calendar for 2.5 hours, spend an hour reading the description, spend an hour and a half writing the description in a blank piece of paper or on a digital paper if you want, it doesn't matter. But don't look at it again. So 1 hour you spend reading the description, 1.5 hours you're just rewriting it from your memory, and you're kind of like maybe spend an hour and a half working on it. If you conclude that what you've written is not as doesn't have at least three things that are fundamentally better than what was there previously, leave a comment and I'll send you $100 for each person who does this. And there we go. I'm putting my money where my mouth is, my friend.
That's an awesome offer, by the way. I wish I had an e-commerce.
But you can only do it once per comment. Don't write 50 comments and saying I tried 50 times. So
All right,
awesome,
man.
awesome. Well, this was
That's
this was
awesome.
great. Talk to you guys soon.